Hey, what's happening? Before we jump into the show, I wanted to see if you had any music on a hard drive. You have a band, you have a project, and you want to self-release your own music. Well, there's an easy way to do it. You can go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate and go get your music up on all the streamers. You keep 100% of your royalties, and you can get 30% off by using this code. It's a great, easy way to get your music up on the streamers and share it with your fans, your friends, your family, your mom, your dog, everybody. Everyone wants to hear it. But go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate, HYPHENATE, and send me the link. I want to hear it too. Send your mom the link. Send your dog the link. They all want to hear it too. We'd like to thank our sponsor, iZotope, the absolute leaders in intuitively designed plugins for audio restoration, mixing, and mastering. At iZotope.com, you'll find a plethora of tools and suites that will enhance your audio production, whether it's voice, video, podcast, or a full production recording session. Check out the industry-standard audio repair tool, RX11, or the multi-tool mixer plugin, Neutron 5, or the powerful Ozone 11 mastering suite, plus tons more. Go to iZotope.com and use the code FRET10 at checkout for 10% off. That's FRET10 to get 10% off at checkout. And again, the website is iZotope.com, IZOTOPE.com.
Improvisational music provides like a lot of opportunity to be really present mentally and physically in a way that is bolstering. You know, I mean, people do yoga for this kind of thing or meditate or something, but I find that the actual practice of playing this music has these kind of benefits for me.
What's happening? Thank you so much for tuning in to Hyphenate with me, your host, Randy Randall. This is our show for Thursday, October 9th. I hope everyone is doing good and, resisting and thriving and, making rad art and doing rad things in the world. Radical things in a radical time. My guest today is a very radical person. Erica Dawn Lyle is my guest. We talk about activism and improvisation and music and art and touring and traveling. Erica has a new record that is coming out now. It is out now. It's been out for a week. We recorded this a little bit before the record was out. But the release date was 10/3/2025. It's called On Fire. It's a collaboration with Feeding Tube Records and 500,000 Records. You can find out more about the record and the tour dates to see Erica. You can go to ericaDawnLyle.info for the website. You can also go to the Instagram where Erica posts all things about the tour and the record and the shows. Her handle is KYANITEEYE. And also don't forget Bandcamp. Bandcamp is also great. ericaDawnLyle.bandcamp.com. There are also going to be links. So wherever you're listening to this, if you look at the show description, there will be links there to find out more about the tour, about the record, where you can go buy it, how to see her live on this tour and support rad people doing rad things in the world. Some of my favorite things to talk about on the podcast. Yeah, I'm enjoying this October. It's fun, getting down into the low 70s, high 60s in our Southern California warm climate. There might be a leaf that'll change somewhere here. I might see a different color leaf sometime. If you are enjoying fall, reach out. Tell us what's going on up in your neck of the woods, as Al Roker would say, or Willard Scott. You can find us Hyphenate Halftime at gmail.com. You can also find me on the Instagram at Randy S. Randall. And if you like this kind of thing, tell your friends. Share it. Let everyone know. Leave a review. Tell the algorithm that this is more of the stuff that you want to be seeing on your podcasting devices. And then they will give you more of these cool things. And they will also show this show to other people who are into these kinds of things. So yeah, spread the word. Let it be known. Hyphenate@gmail.com. Reach out. Send me your music. Send me what you're up to. I love playing new music from bands who are listening to this show in their home or their studio or their commute or their tour or their travels. I hear from people and I love it. I love hearing it and I want to hear your music. So send me a link to your Bandcamp or, MP3s or wherever you're at in the world, hyphenate@gmail.com, and go see Erica. You will not regret it. It's going to be good. There are a lot of good shows coming up in your area. Go see her live, go buy the record, and here's our interview. Erica, thanks so much for coming on to Hyphenate. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Randy. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you too. I know it's been a couple of years. We had that great show out in the park here in Los Angeles a little while back. You have a new record out and a new tour. Let's jump right into it.
Yeah,
tell me about the record.
Yeah, I have a record called On Fire that's coming out the day my tour starts, which is October 3rd. And the record is a split release from Feeding Tube Records from Western Mass and another record store from Western Mass called Bell Tower Records, who are some great folks out here in Western Mass that are pretty deep in the experimental music scene in the same way as Feeding Tube are. And the record is I don't know what else is there to say about it.
I read the press release and it's a lot about fire and kind of a connectivity in a time if the press release is to be believed. It sounds kind of magical in ways.
Yeah, it is to be believed. I mean, there's a number of things to say about this record. I'll say it's my fourth full-length LP in 3 years since I kind of started doing the solo stuff with a lot more intention in 2022. And this is the first one. They've all been experimental kind of improv guitar records. This is the first one that also contains my own vocals and drumming. And, it kind of started for me, this record is kind of a joke. I'm a big fan of the band Van Halen. I don't know, where are you on the Van Halen spectrum?
What's so funny? That is a great question. I'm so glad you asked that. From one guitar player to another, right? These are important things to know. I grew up not taking them seriously at all. I was born in 81, and so I had older brothers who were very much aligned in the Van Halen camp, and I thought it was a joke. I thought all classic rock was a joke. I mean, I thought Led Zeppelin was a joke. So I mean, this is me kind of being a brat. But I do have to say, since Eddie Van Halen has passed, it is aligned with my guitar nerdery as I've gotten older and matured more and been able to listen more. And I think there's been so many amazing tributes and just archive material and all of this beautiful outpouring of biographical information and just sort of his artistic sort of output that I appreciate him a lot more in, I don't know what the artistic way you say it is, but since he's passed, and post his death, I've grown to appreciate him and just seeing the outpouring of what he meant to the guitar community and how inventive he was and all that stuff. So I appreciate him now a lot more than I did at any other point in my life. That makes sense.
That's right. Oh, of course. Yeah. But what about as an Angelino?
Oh, the Van Halen LA impact of what Van Halen was or is. I mean, I have two young boys who like to go to, I should say, I like to take them to this 80s arcade. It's like a retro arcade in Pasadena. And we pass by the park. And I think it's there's a big clamshell there and it's like the Van Halen park. So I often think about Van Halen as this backyard band. I think that's the thing that a lot of the hair metal that the world experienced as on these big stages with fireworks and stuff. LA has this history. Motley Crue was from West Covina, which is a small suburb near where I grew up. And my brother would tell stories of seeing Tommy Lee playing in backyard bands at keggers, but he was still theatrical then. And these guys were all still, probably misogynistic rapists, even as teenagers, but they existed in this small sort of community of druggy suburbs of LA, and that was the truth of it. And that's where the kind of the world I think my
I associate them with, and it makes them a little bit more down to earth. I think seeing them with makeup and high flying kicks and things. So I like thinking of Van Halen as a suburb kind of garage band.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's real. Yeah, they built up their scene and kind of like playing at high schools for a couple years before they were playing the song "On Fire" as the opening track of their entire world tour every single night in 1977 as they broke big. But
that's crazy.
Yeah,
how many records did they put out? I mean, they're like those first 4 records were like in like 2 years, right, or something crazy.
Something like, I don't know. Let's get back to me.
Okay.
Honestly,
okay.
As David Lee Roth would say, let's get back to me.
There we go. Perfect. Yes.
Yeah. So like the thing is, I'm the opposite. I actually listened to Van Halen as a small child, and so Van Halen was very important to me when I was getting into music. Though I love them today, and so I was listening to Van Halen, as I sometimes do with my partner when we're driving around late at night, because my partner is in Angelina and we share a love of Van Halen and the raw sleaziness of DLR. And I was thinking about the song "On Fire," and I was like, oh, this song, these lyrics, like, this could be like such a trans girl anthem, you know? It's like this kind of like, at this time of like real oppression of trans people where they like want to like burn us at the stake, but also people are kind of obsessed with trans people. Like there's like this kind of aspect in the culture where they can't stop talking about us. They can't just like chill out and leave us alone, right? And so I'm thinking of DLR, where he's like intoning this like, you know, I'm in your head, I'm in your bed, you turn on the radio, there I am, you know. And I was like, oh yeah, I wonder if I could like fuck with this somehow. Plus I just love Van Halen. And so I was kind of just like joking around for myself, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go fuck with this song a little and see if I can make something out of it. And then this was the summer of 23. And actually right before I came out and saw you at that time when we played that show. And I was about to start practicing in in a friend's barn, you know, and so I was moved all my stuff over there, and I was like, cool, like tomorrow I'm going to start working with the song. And then I wake up and the sky is black from wildfire smoke. There's all these wildfires in Canada. And I go to my space, and it's this like really strange, eerie day, and I'm like, start working with the song. And I'm in there singing this song like again and again, and all of this, and it starts to have this different feel for me, because I'm like, okay, the world's on fire. This is actually like a different situation. And so like there starts, even though it's like this utterly absurd DLR like you know, howl of male bravado, I'm on fire, you know, is what the song actually is. It's like sung in this way, in this context, it starts to become something else for me. And so I started, you know, I'm an improvisational musician, so I just started like working it into, I started playing it live. I just was like, all right, I'm going to play it and see what happens. So all that summer, I played a lot in the city that summer, and I think I might have played it in Zebulon that summer in LA. And just to see what comes up with it and how it changed and grew. And I played it like a lot during 23 and started to come into a shape of it that I liked, where I was doing a long instrumental break and then doing the a cappella vocals. And I was going to go into the studio, you know, in spring of 24, and I was going to try to record it. And I was in Mexico, and I went to like a really cheap town there to kind of give myself a residency for a month, and was like writing and living on the beach. And I was trying to work out what I was going to do for the vocal arrangement, because there's all kinds of different ways I could sing it. And I went out to the beach one night and was singing the song again and again and again and again and again, trying to work out how I wanted it to be. And this is, of course, like, you know, this is like in February of 24, and at that point we were like about 4 months into the genocide in Gaza. And so, you know, at that time I was like, you know, I was like one of a group of people who were like, it's like we were all sharing news about Gaza together exclusively on social media, right? Like the only thing we would talk about was Gaza. Like we had abandoned all of our personal representation. There was an ethic around it where a lot of people were like, this is the only thing that the world should be talking about. And of course, we're all like shadow banned, and our numbers were like dwindling, and we had almost like no one paying attention to us except for each other online anymore. And so like my story views went from like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds down to like 80 every time, you know. And it's this same group of people, we're talking to each other about Gaza, and we're trying to kind of like almost like just keep our sense of consensus reality alive in this context where it's being denied so greatly what's happening. And I was really struggling with that, like, you know, just like as an artist, like, what does it mean to bear witness? Like, does it even matter? Does it help? What are we engaged in? And that, you know, that night I spent that night singing On Fire on the beach, and then I went and like, I went to sleep, and I woke up, and I woke up to the news that Aaron Bushnell had self-immolated, had set himself on fire to raise awareness of Gaza. And, you know, his words were, "This is the world that they want you to accept." And so and ongoing with this record at every step of the way, it felt like there were these uncanny sort of like really heavy ways that the actual world was bleeding into this process of making the record, of what it actually kind of started off as this like kind of like ridiculous thing that I didn't even think would actually become a record, you know. And then so I went to Los Angeles after Mexico to record the record, and I went to, you know, I work with Vice Cooler a lot. And so I went to Vice's studio, and we recorded all the live instrumental takes of the record and the vocals at that time. And then like a couple of weeks later, his studio burned down. You know, it ended up being the last record that was recorded in his studio. Yeah, and so I was just like, you know, it's been like this every step of the way with the record. Like as I, you know, like last month, as I started getting the PR materials ready, the wildfire smoke came back. You know, like I was doing a residency in the Catskills here in New York State, and I was getting all the stuff ready to send out to press and stuff, and like sure enough, the sky turned black, and there was all this smoke from Canada, and like the whole week I was working on it again. I was back in the same situation that it started, you know. So the record has had this kind of really uncanny quality for me the entire way. And so this spring...
Oh, I was just thinking...
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just thinking about, you know, just the fires and things. And it definitely feels like, you know, now living in Southern California, every fall into winter, you know, it just kind of becomes fire season, you know, for us here.
Yeah.
I don't want to become numb to it, but it's one of those things that almost is to be expected. Like this is the time, you know, in the next 6 months, we'll hear of some terrible wildfire happening here in Southern California. I don't know what there is to do.
Yeah, totally. It is very tragic that we're all becoming so used to these things. You know, I think you know, it's like when I first started working on the cover art for this record, I was remembering, you know, the cover art for this record is a picture of the sun as seen through wildfire smoke, that kind of like brilliant orange color sun that you see. And I was remembering that in that summer of 23, when I first started working on the day that I worked on the record, that I worked on the song rather for the first time, that day, you know, like social media was entirely like people posting photos of the sun through the smoke in the East Coast, like all through New York, you know, it was like that. And so when I went back to put together a record cover, I was like, hey, you know, I tried to crowdsource a photo. I was like, does anybody have that, you know? I couldn't really get one. But then this year I've noticed with the fires, like no one posts photos of the sun through the wildfire smoke. So it's, as you say, it's become so common that it's no longer like something that people even feel the need to call attention to, But yeah, this year I went back to LA to do some finishing on it, and so I set up the time in the winter with Bias to come out in the spring, and then right after that is when the fires came to the really tragic fires in Altadena and Palisades. And so I ended up finishing the record in Pasadena, which brings it back to Van Halen, but also was like in Vice's new studio, but also was like, he's like, hey, you really need to go check out what happened. It's like I have a deep love for Los Angeles, and he's like, I know you care a lot. When you get done tonight, you should go drive around and look. And I was just really like less than a mile from where everything was completely, burned. And he had been shoveling ash out of his yard the entire time. So it ended up feeling like very close to home, all of it. And I think that in the record and the way that it turned out and in the music, like there is kind of both aspects of it are present. Like the initial kind of impulse to make this kind of like real, like confident, like proud rock and roll kind of trans girl anthem is there on one side, and then on the other side you have this much more mournful kind of like introspective feel of the song.
So it's two versions of the same song, like one side and the other side, or it's interpretations are used as a launching point?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's really like the song as a launching point in a way, but I do use the lyrics, and it's two album side length improvisational tracks of guitar. And both sides feature the vocals, and then one side also features some drums as well.
Wow, it sounds powerful. And then and where does the tour take you? Where are you going on tour, and what's that looking like? How's that shaping up?
I was gonna point to I have a cat. I was like, well,
for the audio listeners, there's a detailed calendar behind you. Yeah, this is the
Look very, very hard into your speaker.
Yeah.
And I believe you'll be able to see it.
But I was looking at the dates. I mean, and there's some great venues and big journeys in there. You'll be hitting almost all corners of the states.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited. I am really excited about this tour in a lot of ways. Even though, of course, I embark on this tour at a challenging time in human history, where.
So far, right? I mean, I feel like this is the kind of feeling I feel like we've said the term unprecedented so many times, and it's a unique time in history. But I'm always just reminded of that bad joke. It's like worst time in history so far. Worst,
Right.
That's what I also say about every Metallica record, right? The worst Metallica record so far. The next one could be worse.
I'm not going to make any promises, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be interpreting any Metallica material in my future.
I did learn. I taught myself that. What is it? The anesthesia pulling teeth. The Cliff Burton like bass solo thing that he does.
Oh my god!
It's very like pointed kind of thing, kind of tappy. It just sounds great with like my guitar rig. I have like a octave down with a little bit of fuzz I can do, and so it's like, oh, this does sound good. This is in a bass range, and so I wanted to learn. I was like, this is the bass nasal tone of what I'm doing. Sometimes I can get somewhere near it. So it's like, oh, I should try to learn that, but that's about as far as my Metallica covering goes.
That's really fun. Yeah. Well, when I was in high school, like that, they hadn't quite broken as big yet, but like the people who were in the know knew who they were, including me, and but like all the Hesher boys learned For Whom the Bell Tolls on guitar. That was the big like. That was that like I've arrived as a 15-year-old guitar player.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
that's incredible. Yeah, I tried teaching my 11-year-old son. He wanted to know Enter Sandman, as a riff. I was like, this is accomplishable. This is doable. I mean, you really got to kind of get your finger, just as he's learning guitar. I was like, it's fun to learn riffs, rather than just scales. It's something at least you can, the cadence in your mind. 'Cause I think when you're doing a scale, it's so boring. There's no real like melody to it. It's just kind of this like 1, 2, 3, 4, by the numbers. So
yeah, for sure.
He didn't. Well, he didn't stick with it, but we tried. It was like this can't be that hard. I mean, come on.
That was past my time with them. Yeah, like I'm familiar with the song. I have, probably heard it on Muzak and Whole Foods or something.
Yeah, it's the kind of song that's just everywhere. It's ubiquitously everywhere. It's incredible. But So tell me. Well, yeah, we're gonna say.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on this tour, and there is a lot of wonderful stuff about this tour. I will be in most of the corners, as you say. I'm gonna start off in the Pacific Northwest. I haven't been back there in a minute, which is cool. We were practicing. Bikini Kill was practicing there when I was playing with them. That's where we were gonna start our 2020 tour from. Excuse me. And, of course, we were there when everything shut down for pandemic. And so there was a lot of people I didn't get to play for at that time. But I'm looking forward to going back. In the Northwest, I'm going to be actually in duo. I play in a duo now with this really fabulous drummer and activist and old friend of mine named Marshall Trammell, who I knew way back in the Bay. Years ago in San Francisco. We started playing together in the past year in a group called Maikawara, which is kind of a mashup of the name of the Japanese conceptual artist On Kawara and My War,
The visual artists, I have a My War skateboard up in the corner there. For Black Flag, My War, wow. That sounds great. How many of the shows are as a duo?
We're doing 3. We're doing the Portland, Olympia, Seattle together.
Okay, cool.
And then, then I'm down in the Bay. I got a gig at the Yerba Buena Museum for there's like a show up right now of like people from kind of my old era there, like people like 90s Bay Area art.
Yeah. I was just talking to Aaron Rose. He went up for the opening and.
Oh, cool. Yeah, rad, yeah.
Yeah, Margaret Kilgallen's pieces and just kind of sourced from everywhere.
Totally, like so many wonderful folks involved in that. So there's such a great Bay Area spirit that I still feel like is a real inspiration for me. Like when folks are putting together that show, like I'm not like my art is like not I'm not one of the artists in the show, but like people reached out to me for like ephemera and like flyers and things like that I had made over the years to include in like interstitial parts of the show, and I felt like that was kind of indicative of like there is this kind of Bay Area spirit, like like Chris Johansson was putting together a lot of stuff for it that was and where like people in the Bay would always like, if you were having an art show, you would ask like 5 of your friends to contribute work to it, and then you would say it was your show, and it'd be like 5 of your paintings and 5 other people's paintings or something. Mm-hmm. That's just kind of like how it was a very like community collective vibe, and that's definitely in this museum show as well. Like a lot of people were included that were not among the like 6 or 7 featured artists. So I'll be playing at that, and Brontes is on the bill with me, so I'm excited about that. He's an old friend from back in the South and a collaborator. And Brontes did a song with me and Vice Cooler actually on this benefit record we did a couple years ago called Land Trust, and so I haven't seen him since we shot the video for that last year, so it'll be cool to see him. And then I'm down in LA, and oh man, what a great time. So this record too, what I didn't say is like, it's like in the past like 5 years, well, in the past 10 years, I've lived in Los Angeles a lot for many different periods of time. And Los Angeles is really important to me. My partner is from LA, and we got together there and spent a lot of time there together. and so I also feel like this record for me, is really like there's a lot of appreciation in it for Los Angeles. Though I recognize that not everybody in LA embraces Van Halen as an LA band in the way that they do, like, say, like Guns N' Roses or the Chili Peppers or something. I understand that because Van Halen did not write an anthemic song about LA.
Oh, interesting.
that they do not feature in like murals and stuff in the same way.
That is so interesting. I think there is a big Eddie Van Halen Eddie mural on the side of the Sunset Guitar Center. He's there. That's
okay.
the big rock and roll one there. But that's such a funny idea. I think it hits me right in my sort of sweet spot of music in LA, and I was like, oh yeah, these LA bands. Like, this is what a funny idea, But yeah, Van Halen as LA band. It doesn't. Yeah, you're right. It kind of. I always think of Pasadena, which is LA for all intents and purposes. I do have to say, I just saw Oasis in Pasadena. A friend had an extra ticket. I got to glom on, and I do love the way. And I'd also seen the Rolling Stones in Pasadena at the big Rose Bowl. It's a big giant football stadium.
Yeah,
and I love the British pronunciation of "Hello, Pasadena."
That's right.
It's a beautiful thing, but like being on tour and I would imagine with those Bikini Kill shows, it's like you almost all the cities start to blend together in one way or another. And I remember it's like I got in trouble. We were playing just outside of Paris, but it was like a suburb, and I said like, "Hey, thanks Paris for coming," and they're like, "Nah, Sacre Bleu." They were so pissed that I didn't identify Silver Lake, the equivalent of Silver Lake. I said L.A. and they're like, "No, we're not L.A. We are Silver Lake." I'm like, "Oh, fuck off." It's all kind of the name of the same place, right? I think I'm very aware of, but not sensitive to the greater Southland, which I think only weather people say the Southland, but that greater Los Angeles area, it's all LA, right? Or I don't know. How do you find it? How do you find it as you're here? I mean, some West Side and some East Side.
Yeah, I think it's all LA. I mean, I mostly was the last couple of years. I mostly lived in Pasadena actually when I was doing Bikini Kill stuff. So. So I spent a lot of time like in the Arroyo, like, doing stuff there. Yeah, and then, maybe that's, I don't know, it's like I'm from South Florida, and around Miami. And so like, Miami and LA have a very similar kind of like psychogeographical kind of like relationship to this, like, they're like these sprawling cities that are comprised of these small little towns that have their own kind of identity, sort of have their own identity, And
they sort of collect those types of people too. They play a similar kind of like from Dropout to Dreamer sort of like spectrum of weirdos that all kind of congregate in these areas.
A little bit, but Florida attracts more like there is an opportunistic kind of like raw criminal element, that flocks to Florida. Florida's full of like real last chancers, Wow. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I remember in the 90s I came out. Do you know this guy named Eric Bloom? He used to do a magazine called Great God Pan. He was like,
I don't think so.
It was like a LA kind of like punk / history mag. Okay. He took me on a tour of the Black Flag sites in the like South Bay, and I was like really impressed with how like I was like, these towns are exactly the towns that I grew up in Florida. This is like this is like before Hermosa was like so gentrified,
Right. It became Silicon Beach too. I mean, so much of the tech came down there, which I'm sure changes everything.
Totally. Yeah.
The engineer Spot, who did all of those SST records, has a great photo book, or has all these great photos they've compiled of the early 80s, late 70s Hermosa.
So beautiful. Yeah. His stuff is wonderful. I was lucky to hang out with him one time with Tim Kerr in Austin, and he is such a like beatnik like legend, you know what I mean? He's like one of those people that had his finger on the pulse of every subculture all the way through, Mm-hmm. He was like right there at the beginning, He's such a special person. anyway, yeah, I just wanted to say, yeah, the record, the record really does have this kind of like dedication to Los Angeles, and also to to the city right now as the United States anti-fascist city that stood up so hard to these ice rays, and that's reeling from these fires, but is still like showing up for each other in all these wonderful ways. It's so inspiring. I have so many friends that are working so hard there and are so traumatized by all of this, but are still showing up. And it's really a beacon for people in the rest of the country. Like people in Chicago right now are fearing that the government's going to invade their city. They're looking to places like LA. How are you resisting? And so, yeah, I just really wanted to like bring that to the city as well. So I'm excited to come back to LA. I always have really great shows there, and this time I have two. And the first is at a place in Highland Park called Scribble. I'm playing with my pal Dagger Woon. Dagger was in this amazing kind of queer radical performance group called Mirrored Fatality. There are a couple of sweet young Angelinos. Unfortunately, one of them passed away this year in an accident, and so Dagger is now pressing on as a solo performer. And so I'll be playing with Dagger in LA and San Diego. And then on Sunday, the 26th of October, I'm over at 2220 Arts. And that's with Patrick Shiro-Ishii, who is such a hero to the improvisers. We all love Patrick. He's like, such a great horn player, and he's also plays in this absurd grindcore band called The Armed. So I didn't know The Armed either. I know him as like this guy who plays like free jazz and stuff, but he's playing like in stadiums with this band, The Arm. They're like an enormous band.
That's wild.
Who else is on that gig? Sarah Register and Elaine Carey are going to do a guitar duo together, so that's sweet. And then this visual artist named Martha Colburn is going to be doing visuals the whole night. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about those gigs and kind of thinking of those as kind of like also as a record release, even though I have this record release in New York first. And
it's
so,
yeah. It's like the whole tour can be a record release. Every night's a party. Every night's everyone come out and buy the record.
Yeah, there's a school thing. I'm going to be at Oberlin for a minute as a visiting artist, and then I'm going to be on tour
cool.
I'm doing a Midwest tour for a couple weeks. I got so I'm excited about that. I don't know. It's like, yeah, good gigs in Chicago and all that, and then I'm finishing with an East Coast run, and I'm going to be doing that with this group called Censor Ghost from DC. They're kind of a post-punk band. They just had a record come out on Discord. My old friend Amanda plays guitar with them, and they're like cool, rad older punks that I like to hang out with, and we're going to be doing like 5 shows up the coast together in the beginning of December, and then that'll be it. So this is all that's scheduled to happen.
Yeah, barring any unforeseen government meltdowns or global pandemics,
what could happen?
Or
what could go wrong?
Extreme weather events. No, I know everything comes with an insurance policy of like, okay, this is the plan. As a musician, we always kind of live in that like 6 months to a year to 18 months out of, what I mean? You make things to then fulfill them, but we've all seen how unreliable that can be.
My friend and I were joking about a remake of National Lampoon's Vacation 2025, right? Where it's like, hey, like, let's get the family together. We're going to, let's drive across the country, like, things are so crazy flying now. And then just like the whole thing is like, dust storms and fires and COVID and ice raids and
every city you pull into has its own catastrophic scenario. Oh, it feels true.
Where's Chevy Chase when you need the man?
Oh God, yeah, right. Yeah, who knows how long he'll be hanging in there. God, yeah.
My partner said he's dead. I don't know.
Oh no, really? I hadn't heard that. I think he's close to it.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's incredible. I mean, how do you find, as active, creative, artists, like how do you balance it all out? Like what are some of the challenges, and how do you sort of combat this for people who are in similar situations, or, are sort of just offering advice, or sort of any tricks or tips or anything that you've learned? I mean, it is not easy out there. I mean, obviously, the political, socio, just everything. I just feel like, we kind of opened up the conversation just saying that, there is a lot of attention and a lot of pressure being placed on our communities and the sort of the left and progressive and this sort of side of things. Like where do you find solace, or how do you find that energy to create and to pursue it?
Well, my background is, I've always been a punk and I've always played music, but my background is actually in, organizing, really. So I have a lot of activist background, and I try to, I'm always looking for ways to get my music to align with that, even though I'm not as directly involved in political organizing now, but like, and so, I have been doing organizing like around like trans healthcare while I'm on tour. I've been doing sometimes I'm doing workshops with people where I'm spreading some information while I'm on tour. And that way I'm meeting people as I go. I try to use that tour as an opportunity to not just play with musicians that I really want to see, that I'm excited about, but also as a ways to network with people in my community. And to find different, I'm going to Iowa City on this tour because there's a bunch of rad, trans women there that are organizers, and I want to meet them.
That's great.
But I guess right now I'm really just putting a lot of effort into developing the performance for the trip, and so ultimately that's the thing that's that refills the well, is that actually the doing it and being present. Improvisational music provides a lot of opportunity to be really present mentally and physically in a way that is bolstering. People do yoga for this kind of thing or meditate or something, but I find that the actual practice of playing this music has these kind of benefits for me. And so it's almost spiritual, and I say that at the risk of being I'm an LA girl who's talking about my spiritual practice of playing improv music. I know it sounds to you like I'm just smoking weed and playing guitar, but it's actually
there's a bigger energy shift. There's a battery that becomes refilled. I can relate to that so much. You know what I mean? Yeah, it really is that kind of. Well, I always feel like it's a connection with some other kind of energy or higher power, or however however you identify it. There's that. If I'm not present, then I feel like the conduit of something. You know what I mean? I feel like that's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, I'm self-conscious and my shoes look weird. But
yeah.
Otherwise I'm floating in some other kind of plane, and we've all shifted our energies into a fifth dimension, and then we land back into ourselves after some kind of psychedelic non-chemical journey. It's the closest thing I've ever experienced to that.
Yeah, totally. And it's there's it's also an opportunity to learn a lot. I'm actually really curious as to how people are facing this moment, and so I'm going to be able to meet a lot of people or see old friends and see what they're going through right now. And every night my thing is different. It is really about channeling, because it is improvisation, and so there is a lot of keeping my antenna up and being what is present here right now, and what is appropriate for this group of people. Also, I don't know, it's interesting, since I've started doing the solo stuff, it's I'm not often easily filed, and so in the old days I was a DIY punk rock person. And then for a while I was in Bikini Kill, which is a very pro-rock position to be in. And then now I'm in this kind of DIY sometimes in a DIY culture, sometimes in like a jazz culture, sometimes I'll play punk shows, sometimes I'm like in queer art venues, and so I also get like an interesting window on like all these different worlds. And when I'm playing shows with like improv like players like Patrick or something, sometimes it feels like it's really about like, oh, we're all people that play music, like we're like the players, but there's like there's like a community around that that's really sweet, that does remind me of DIY. Like any kind of art where there's not a lot of money, you can have community, right? You can have community in experimental film and experimental music, etc. And so in poetry, right? You can have community. And so these are the worlds I'm in. You
can't have money, but you can have community. That's usually the trade, is what you're saying. I like that. I think that's the best sort of identification of it. You trade money for community. Or you could be paid, but your community is not as resilient. It becomes transactional.
No, it's like, not exactly. Yeah, it's more the latter. It's more what you said. It's like there is money that's possible. Like all of these people, we're all making a living. I'm touring. I'm in a sustainable relationship with touring, right? Mm-hmm. But like, I'm not like getting rich off it, but I can do it like a couple times a year and like make some cash. But like there's not a lot of money. It's not lousy with strivers. It's like you don't go into like poetry or experimental music to hit it big, it's like it's like that's not the path, and so that way the people that are there are actually real people that you can really like talk to and hang out with. And but I'm in that world, but then sometimes I would get booked sometimes with like trans girls who are playing electronic music in New York City or something, and that's like a whole world where there's like all these people playing music where it's like 1,000 beats a minute and has no comprehensible rhythm, and people dance like crazy to it, and I show up with a guitar, and they're like, what's that? And then they're like, oh, this sort of, you could fit in here,
That's wild.
And so I feel like, I'm able to like, I've kind of been grateful that I've been able to like get a window in all these different vibrant musical worlds in the last couple of years, and so I'm looking forward to that on tour as well.
It's a beautiful diversity too within these spaces. I think so often people from the outside would just kind of write off or just lump into like, oh, it's one kind of thing, which I imagine in any kind of identity politics is always something you strive for, is really the individual, right, instead of a being pigeonholed or even within our own kind of left sort of community. It's like, oh, okay, well, LGBTQ, these issues are over here, and arts and funding over, but really in the reality it was always so much more messy and blurry to it all. I find
totally.
You can't really talk about environment without also talking about gender, or these things that they do go hand in hand, even if it doesn't make for an easy fundraising pamphlet, but it's the truth is, the people, involved in these communities and involved in these causes often have multiple points of intersection where, where that kind of care and belief system is engendered, it all starts from similar places.
Yeah, totally. If Spot were around today, he would be hanging out with these trans girls. I'm taking their pictures, I'm pretty sure.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what's so much of it too. Is like, with music, it comes just that energy. Like, there's just people that can feed off of that kind of energy of stuff. Like, oh, this is just cool. And why is it cool? Because it's cool. It's what's happening.
Yeah.
People know that.
It's got the spark. It's got the spark of life.
Yeah. It's got some kind of juice. I totally lost my place where I was going. I was going down a whole environmental sort of thing in my head. But the that's what I was going to say. I had a great conversation with LG from Velma and the Sleaze. I don't know if you know them. They're a great like Southern queer female, lesbian like bar rock band. Incredible, really fun. But as we were talking, I came upon this thing of like, well, I'm like a noise rock, guitarist, but I'm also, it's kind of a noise artist. And she was like, you got to say it proud. You can't just be mumbling this, to yourself. I'm like, all right. And it felt, I'm also in recovery, and I'm sober. And I was kind of thinking of like, all right, I am a noise artist, hi, my name is Randy and I'm a noise artist. Like I could put my hand up for that. I have to admit to this noise, being a noise artist sometimes it may be akin to some type of addiction in one way or another, of buying gear. And I do nothing but spend money and go play shows to 5 people in a basement somewhere. And I lose money every night that I do it, but I'm addicted to it because it is a feeling of a rush. And that sort of like that thing of playing noise to small audiences. I get so much.
Is No Age not a thing anymore?
No, we are, but it's just, I feel like I end up doing more. I've been doing a lot more of these solo shows.
Oh, okay. I was going to say.
So, no, I mean, we're still operating, as a band. I think we're taking a little bit of a break, but it's, we're not gone. But I've been playing a lot of solo music, and it's a funny one to really kind of, to just, to find like, what do I get out of it? It's such a personal thing, shows.
Yeah, for real. That's cool that person said that to you. I had a similar thing in the beginning, because I don't know. I don't know if you had this, I feel like I've spent so much of my life trying to overcome like this like punk damage from like a really small early formative period of my life where I was just like, I came into punk in the late 80s, so I was in a culture war where like I was like, our music is real and everything else is fake, man. And so like, and it's like we have to like, we have to break through and show the world, that we're like doing the real thing, And so I was such a hater about every single thing except for punk, right? Mm-hmm. So when I started playing experimental music and improv music, I was like, well, a couple times a week in your room alone is okay,
Just like, just don't show anybody. Yeah, just don't do it in public, right?
I know. And then one time I was interviewing my friend Hannah Baer, who's a trans girl writer and author, and we were talking, she started making music at that time. I don't think she is anymore, but we were talking about how it was actually like harder for us to come out as noise musicians than it was to be trans. Where like, it felt like just too, it's like being trans is like, you're just like, cool, I'm trans. And everyone's like, that's awesome, I support you, And then they're like trying to tell your old punk friends about your like solo gig. And they're like, they're just like, what happened to you?
You used to be punk. Now it's just noise. What happened?
They're like, they're like definitely not coming to the show. They're just kind of like, they're just like, oh God, it's such a drag. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a funny one in that, I don't know. Yeah. It just feels like something that's so personal. And I think, and even like, I was identifying when you were saying, that like punk was everything, especially those early ages, where identity is so much everything. You have to be part of a group sort of dynamic and a community dynamic. And part of the way, communities do that is by putting down other community, we have a unified enemy, and especially in that youthful sort of like immaturity. But I feel like I was always so drawn to this feeling of like there is some universal truth in the world, and obviously it's subjective and it comes through me and it's through my own experience. But I think I became so excited about that through punk and through noise and all of these kind of things that I found like on such a deeply personal level where like I could just hear a song and like this feels true. You know what I mean? And again, it's subjective, but as a young person, it mattered so much to me. I think even beyond community and beyond all these things that I think I was almost offended because I'm a little bit younger, right? And so like 90s and Hot Topic and Blink-182 and the mall punk sort of MTV bullshit of all of that stuff, Green Day, it was just like, this isn't true. Like, I needed to search, through the underground and find the scrappy noise earnestness of bands that did connect to me in those kind of ways.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think what I found too, that it's like, I think like when I was like really young, it's like I would have had resistance to the it's like I would have not understood how something that doesn't have lyrics could be like political, right? And so now, it's like now I'm at like a place where I'm like, where like I see improvisational music in its form as like political in itself, like I see that like we are in a crisis as humans, and we face possible extinction, and I do not believe that there is a programmatic answer to this question, that like we're gonna like someone among us is gonna write a book that's gonna be like, here's the steps out of it, or like here's my system that's gonna lead us out of it. This is my political structure that's gonna lead us out of it, etc. I think it's going to require a lot of improvisation. You know, we're going to have to lean intuitively into intention around living in a different kind of world, and like face things as they come. In addition to having, you know, like a philosophical underpinning. You know, but I think improvisation is really important to what we face, and I think that. I found that improvisation was a really important part of gender transition for me as well. It was like I had to intuitively move into a different form of life, you know, as a person who was already well into life. And so I think all of us are facing, like, we are inside of a world that is not really sustainable, and we are trying to figure out how to be in a different place. And we're facing great attack at the same time. And I think that we're going to have to move intuitively and improvisationally in that direction together. And so I feel like, you know, I approach the performance as related to that. You know, I feel like it's practice for being in that kind of open and aware state of mind. And when I see other improv, and I also feel like philosophically that improvisation is the only thing that's antithetical to the algorithm. You know, like our desires have created this like net for us where we're ensnared, and everything's brought, you know, pitched back to us. But if you're inventing things in real time as you go, that's your only way to outwit it, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, it's hilarious you say that, because I remember, you know, like 10 years ago, whenever this thing was like, oh, the phone's listening, or these things they're watching what you search, I would intentionally go on and just try to find random things, just in hopes of just sort of throwing it off, or at least providing myself with something of interest, rather than just, you know what I mean, because there's nothing more boring than the next recommended song on a streaming playlist. Like, hey, you listen to Fugazi, maybe you would like this band. Like, no, that's not how I want to consume music. Let's go somewhere completely different. Let's do something. Let's listen to Baltimore Club next. Let's go somewhere else. Like, I don't want to hear what Spotify thinks of my you know, song choice, and tell me more of the same, please. You know what I mean? It is such the death of inspiration, you know, versus the going through life and bumbling and going into a thrift store and just finding, you know, the Detritus and stuff, and putting together your own sort of like, you know, the Dadaism, the surrealism of life, and embracing that. I feel like that's the kind of stuff that's really getting shaved down by this like narcissistic mirrored relationship we have to our presence online. And so you're just staring back into your own butthole for years on end, and just you know, it ceases to become I don't know, surreal in some ways. You know, it ceases to become like inspiring, because it's not there to inspire. It's there to keep you sucking on the tit of it all. Just keep paying for more. Totally.
Sorry for going there is also this.
Oh, no, I said sorry for going off.
Oh, no worries. I mean, there is also this.
Sorry.
Yeah, there is also this flattening aspect. I think, you know, that's interesting. Like when I remember, like when I first had Spotify, it was like years ago. You know, one of the first things that was like, oh, you listen to the Ramones, maybe you would like Gigi Allen. And I was like, okay, the algorithm obviously like has no clue, you know, like,
culturally, like, what this is.
Yeah, what the significance of these two artists are, you know, which I always thought was funny. But I will say that the algorithm has got me dialed for like shoes. It sucks. So
it can be
like,
beneficial in some ways.
It's like, do you want these shoes? And I'm like, oh my God, I do. Too bad I don't have any money.
Yeah. Thanks though. Thanks for showing them to me. Great. Well, I want to make sure we get plugs in and where can people follow you and where can people buy the record and see all the tour dates?
Great. Okay, so you could go to my website. I have a website that's just Erica Dawn Lyle, Erica with a C, Dawn, D-A-W-N, Lyle, L-Y-L-E, .info, erica.lyle.info. And all my stuff's up there. That's probably going to be the best way to buy the record. That should be... when are you airing this?
This will be right before the tour.
Okay, cool. Yeah, by then this will all be up online, and you'll be able to get it. The record physically exists now. I have it. They're going to start selling it. They're doing pre-orders right now, so you could also check out the 500,000 is the name of Bell Tower's label. 500,000 Records, and they have this up on the Bandcamp right now, and you can buy it. You could get the pre-order from that. And and then I have other stuff. I have the record that me and Vice did. There's still a handful of the colored vinyl of those left from Get Better Records. That's a double record that Vice Cooler and I made the music, and then got all these different singers. We have Kim's on it, Kim Gordon, Kathleen Hanna, the Raincoats, Kim Deal, Satomi from Deerhoof, Christine of the Lot. It's just this tremendous record of people that we love that sang with us, and Mike Watt plays bass on it. The Linda Lindas. It's really it's really fun. So that's also still available, and the proceeds from that still go to help African American farmers buy land.
Incredible. All right. Well, everybody go to the website, buy the record, and come out and support on the tour. All the tour dates. I'll have links to this in the show notes below. So if everyone listening to this, go to the show notes and you can click through, buy the record, see the tour dates. And
thank you so much,
Erica,
Randy.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was great getting to catch up. The time flies so fast.
Thanks for having me on. Hope to see you in LA.
How awesome was that? Erica, thank you so much for coming on the show. Remember, everybody, go to ericadawnlyle.info for all the information about the record and the tour. You can also go to the Instagram, and what is the Instagram handle is, I will spell it out, KYANITEEYE on Instagram. And you can also go to Bandcamp, ericadawnlyle.bandcamp.com for records and tour dates and all the other great stuff. Don't miss out. Thank you, Erica, so much for coming on, and thank you everyone for listening. And remember, fuck shit up, fuck ice, resist, stay strong, support your community, support your brothers and sisters and everyone out there in the world. We're all in this thing together. So let's move forward as a global community and village and support freedom and autonomy. All right. Bye.
As David Lee Roth would say, let's get back to me.